Hi everyone, it's Pedro again from Patlista. I'm in the process of transferring some videos from an old channel that I have to this channel. So I'm also a Power BI developer, and I've passed about 1.5 years ago in the DA-100 exam that's been extinct. It's now called PL-100, which is basically the same exam. So I'm due for renew now. I'll have to do in the next 6 months to keep my certification as a data analyst in Azure. So when I passed the exam, I've recorded 2 videos, one on my channel just like giving some tips, and then I also gave a talk at the Power BI group in Adelaide, and I pretty much gave the same lecture. I'm gonna combine those two into one video, which you can either watch one of the two. So hope you enjoy it. If you have any questions about the DA-100, please comment on the link below. And before I start, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, click the bell, and like the video so more people can watch it. Thank you very much. Bye.
Hi, this is Pedro Junqueira, and I'm gonna present how to pass the DA-100 exam. So this is the Microsoft exam that validates your Power BI skills. So in this agenda, I'll try to cover in about 10 to 15 minutes. I've just wrote this presentation and I have done much preparation. I've passed the exam pretty recently. I've passed in 14, I think it was 15th of May on Saturday, yes. I got a score of 852 out of 1,000, which is a little bit over the 700 minimum to pass, which I think it was okay. It wasn't like flying colors, but was above average with some margin. And in this agenda, I'm gonna go through should I bother taking the DA-100, and then that's gonna help you to make a decision to take or not to take. And then I'm gonna tell you, in my opinion, how hard this exam is. What's the exam format? So what are the type of questions they ask, and how many questions are in the exam? How long it takes? How should I prepare for it? So I want to be ready when I see the tests. So I'm going to tell you about the curriculum, what courses can you take online to prepare, and how you should practice. And when I know I'm ready, and some tips under the exam, and lastly, what if I fail? So a little bit about myself. I'm Pedro. I've already said that, but here's some information. I'm a business intelligence or data professional, more specialized in business intelligence, and I have skills in data analysis, business analysis. I'm a Python programmer. I have a DA-100 certification, and also Azure fundamentals. And after that, I would like to prepare for data engineering, which is an area that I wanted to expand my skills. So, should I bother taking the exam? You may be the case that it was me. So I'm already good at Power BI, and I wanted to validate my skills. So the problem was, and I'm gonna tell that later, was even though I was good at Power BI, and I don't know if that's your case, but I think that's the case of most people that use Power BI. Not everyone that uses Power BI uses 100% of Power BI. I may use like 30 to 40%, maybe 50 if I stress. But there are some functionality that I really don't use in Power BI. I don't use it because I don't think it's good, because I think I use other tools to do the same thing. I'll give one example. I rather prefer to do my ETL in SQL in store procedures rather than using Power Query, for example. I think Power Query was designed more for a self-service type of work, but I use Power BI a lot for modeling and also for visualization, which is the most used skills or functionalities that I use as a visualization tool and also as a modeling tool. And even modeling tool, I've used much more analysis service than Power BI. So this exam was good so that I could learn, even though the visualizations and the modeling things that I didn't know, this was good for me. And another thing was, I haven't used Power BI for about a year on a daily basis because I was doing more data science and data engineer work. So I was using sparingly Power BI. So I've kind of like lost my skills, and I wanted to go back to Power BI because I was starting to use it on a daily basis. And then because I wanted to start working again with Power BI, I thought that was good for me to do the exam. Another reason that you'd like to take the exam is that you don't have experience and you wanted to learn Power BI. I would say to these people, you can use the exam to go through and learn, but maybe I would get some experience with Power BI, or because a lot in the exam will come from experience, because even though I'm going to go through this later, the test is very broad. What it measures is if you know how to use it in a context of an analysis that you're doing. It's not much like memorization. It's more like, okay, you have to memorize the functionalities, how you should do it, when you should do, should we use a method or other, but you have to do in a context of an analysis. So I would say, yeah, you can do that, but ideally this test was more designed for someone that has got more experience. So get some experience or learn it too, and more than memorize stuff, try to practice. That's very important. Another reason that you'd like to take the exam is you're not working with that analyst, but then you wanted to go through the learning to get the certification, and then that may help you to find a job. So, or it can be other reasons. I think I've explained a little bit about myself. I wanted to kind of recycle my skills in Power BI. So all in all, I think it's worth it, but I would say get some practical experience, even though it just try to use and solve problems with your data, like let's say your health data, your cycling data, if you're a sportsman, your running data, or try to analyze some data, even though you don't use that at work. Try to learn and practice, and then once you've got a grasp of it, and then you can prepare for the exam. That's gonna be much easier. How hard the exam is? I would say that if you think about depth and breadth, I think it's completely breadth. It doesn't go too deep in every subject. It has got a very extensive content, but it's not too deep or advanced in any areas. I think I did a bit of a spelling error there. So what's the exam format? I don't think it's a fixed number, but it's around 50 to 54 questions, and usually is starting off with 2 case studies with about total 8 to 10 questions. It's based on a scenario, so it gives you like a scenario, a problem, a data model, a type of the business, and they may give you some tables, some relationships, and they will ask like 4 to 5 questions about this scenario. So you're gonna have 2 case studies, and one thing that's very important is once you've completed case studies and then you say I finished, you cannot go back. So that's very important. And then you probably will do the 2 case studies, and then after that you have like about 46 to 48 questions. That's, you can navigate, you can save the questions and go back, and you can do in any order you want. What I would do in sequence, and if I find something hard, I would skip. The type of questions are various. There are like multiple choice, which is you have a question and then you have to pick one answer, one right answer. There are questions like multiple options, so it can be more than one correct answer. Let's say, given this statement, what from the next questions, from the options, how many of those are true? And then you can select 1, 2, 3, 4 or more. There are drag and drop questions where there is a fill in the blanks, or a certain statement will be related to like, let's say direct query, or live connection, whatever it is. And there is like one type of question that's called steps in order. It's kind of like there is a list of steps, let's say 6 or 7 steps, and they say in order to achieve that in Power BI, select 4 steps of those 7 in a particular order. I think this is the kind of the hardest questions, at least for me, unless I knew what I had to do. I always got confused, and I probably would be able to select the steps, but I would like flip around one step. But this is probably these are the type of question that I would skip, that would take longer for me. Some cases I knew how to do it and it was easy, but most of the cases was hard. You have questions where you have kind of like a true or false. It's usually like 3 statements, and they say, given a certain subject, these statements is true or false, these statements is true or false. And then one thing about this exam is you don't need to get everything right in order to get points. So you may have questions where you have, let's say, select options that are right. Let's say that they have 3 options, and let's say you select 2 right and 1 wrong. It's like a partial question, so you get points. So because of that, I would recommend never leave anything blank. Okay. And then there is a type of questions where it's like a group of questions. It's not a case study, but they usually ask you one question and they say, if I do this, would that solve the problem? True or false? And then they ask the same question again, but then they suggest another thing, like if, let's say, for example, I wanted to sort the top 3 products. If I use the top n functions, would that solve the problem? Yes or no? If I use the function rank, would that solve the problem? Yes or no? So then they ask like 4 questions and the same questions, and they give you a suggestion, and then you have to say yes or no. That's one type of questions. And lastly, it's like fill in the blanks, which is kind of similar to the drag and drop, but it's, instead of a drag and drop, it's like a drop box. So these are kind of the type of questions in but if you do and buy, I'm talking about the preparation now. So I would recommend you to download the PDF, which I'm gonna show here. No, it's here. You have the PDF. Download this PDF, and here is gonna outline like, so what areas the exam cover, like prepare the data, and then every single bullet, make sure that you cover. One way to cover that is to do the learning path. It's not going to cover 100%. And what I would do is I would complement with Power BI documentation. If I go my bookmarks, I would go on the Power BI documentation. If in the learning, if there's any topics on the PDF that's not covered, you just do a search and like read the documentation with more details of that particular subject. So that's the way I would prepare for the exam. That's the way I did, and it did work. So first step is download the PDF, go to the Microsoft Learning Path. Here's the link, and then complement with documentation. In terms of course, I do recommend one which is Philip Burton in the Udemy. It's very, very comprehensive. He goes in Power BI through every single menu, every single button, and then give practical exercises and tests just to make sure that you know the content. I think he's go beyond and above. If you follow his course, you're gonna cover 99% of the exam content. But I would say if you have extra money and then you want to go through a little bit more tips and tricks about Power BI, there is the Park Stevens. I thought that was a bit shallow. It was a bit of a disappointment. I think I paid $27 for a monthly subscription. I just subscribed for about a month, but I just took the course in about 3 to 4 days. It's not very extensive. It's only maybe a couple of hours. He does cover the curriculum very thorough. Every single bullet point he has a video, but they're very shallow, like 3 to 5 minutes video. He just given an example, but it's okay. It's good. It does help, but it's not like I wouldn't do only this. If you have to pick one, I would pick Philip Burton Udemy. He did this course for when the certification was before the 100, when it was the 7778, analyzing and visualizing data with Power BI, but it's pretty much the same content. He adapted to the DA-100. He had the new videos, but I think it covers a lot, especially the M part of it. I think it's pretty good. The DAX part of it, I think he doesn't do a good job. I haven't put on my slides, but you may know the SQL BI website. I think that's the best place for the DAX, or even the learning path of Power BI. I think that cover enough DAX that you need to know for this exam. So once you cover all the content, you make sure that you cover either through a course or the learning path or the documentation. I would recommend to start practicing and doing some mock exams so you can see gauge how good you are in terms of if you really learned the content. I would recommend you can buy some Udemy, but be very careful with copyrights, but because I found things that people are just copying from this next one here that is the measureUp.com website. That's the official, I think it's Pearson's, one of the comps that administer the test itself. They also have this company called MeasureUp that does practice exam. It is absolutely exactly the same format. It's very similar. Even some questions they're not exactly the same, but they are very similar. So I would recommend that. Also, if you go to my GitHub, I did a very thorough notes, like a summary going through every single bullet point of the curriculum. Okay, when do you know that you are ready for exam? If you're already good at Power BI and then you have a very good broad knowledge, I would say go for the exam. You may pass because it's not very deep, not difficult, but be careful to make sure that you cover the areas that you are weak. In my example, I was very weak at Power Query, because I don't actually use it. So I had to learn a lot about those. If you're doing practice test, I would say if you are just acing it, kind of getting close or a little bit over 90%, I would say you are ready to go. You can do a readiness test. My friend Flavio Menezes, he's got a good blog post where you can go. Yeah, this is the article, very comprehensive article. And at the end, you can sign up for his mailing list, and then you're gonna go to a Power BI dashboard where he's gonna ask you some questions and how good you are in these particular areas of the exam and assess if you're ready or not. I really recommend that one. And if once you feel you're ready, just go and take the exam. The worst that can happen is you fail. Don't worry, that's not the end of the world. You pay extra $165 and do it again. It's not too expensive. On the exam day, what I recommend is book the exam in the weekend and in the morning, because you're going to be rested and you're not going to have any extra pressure to finish and go to work or whatever. People will be in the housing or making noise trying to go to school, or your kids. Just say to your family, go have breakfast somewhere, go to the, I don't know, playground, and leave me alone for about a couple of hours, and then you do the exam relaxed. One thing that I got a bit nervous, even though I already had experience with the Measure app, which is very similar, the navigation is a bit different. So when I finished the exam, I marked questions that I haven't answered that I want to go back and answer. It was about 4 or 5 questions, but I couldn't find it. It's an error that's on the top left that goes back to the area where you can navigate. If you read Flavio blog post, he's gonna give you a link to a video of Microsoft that tells you how to navigate. I haven't watched this video, but I think it's pretty useful. That will give you an idea of how the exam looks like and how to navigate through it. So one important thing is when you do the exam, you have enough time. You may have about 2 to 3 minutes per questions, and then really carefully. And for example, there are some questions where I've mentioned already, you have to pick like 2 or 3 options. Sometimes it says, what are the 2 options below? Sometimes I was very in a hurry. I didn't see the word 2, and then I only picked 1 question and I got that one wrong. But to pick the other one was pretty easy. And I did a lot there in the practice test because I was not paying attention. But on the exam day, make sure that you pay attention and read it very carefully. That question may cost you the exam. Another tip is, if the question is too hard, there will be, out of the 52 questions, there may be like 5 or 6 questions that are a bit harder, or you just skip those. Just try to do the easy ones first, and then if you got the easy ones done, better. Sometimes you can spend too much time in the hard one and don't have any time left to do the easy ones. What if you fail? Don't worry. Don't be afraid to fail. If you feel that you are ready, just book the test, do it. If you fail, no problem. You need to identify why you failed. Was it because you were nervous? You did it too quick? You didn't pay attention? Was there any other area that you were weak? One good thing is, when you finish the exam, either you pass or fail, you can print a report that's gonna tell you how well you did in each one of the sessions. They're not going to disclose the questions that you got right or wrong, but they will say, oh, in this session you got 100%, you got 50%, and then you go back and study the ones that you were weak, and then next time you're gonna be strong and you're gonna pass. So just regroup, stud, and rebook the test. So I think that's about it. If you want to get in touch with me, you can connect me on LinkedIn or make the comments below. I'm gonna put the links for the courses and everything on the presentation, and I may also put a link for you to download my presentation. Okay, thank you very much, and I hope my presentation helped you to pass the exam. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Heidi. Thank you, everyone. Very good presentation to see the capabilities of Power BI, just expanding. So let me just, are you seeing my screen? Just to make sure that, can someone give feedback?
Yep, got the slide. Yep.
Okay. So I've recently did this exam to get the data analyst associate's certificate. It was about 2 weeks ago. And I passed the exam. So, and then I'll say, yeah, so I would like to then share, because when I was planning to do the tests, so I researched something and I had some people give feedback and etc. It was very hard to find like a course or something that would guide me to pass. I got some good feedback and on the LinkedIn or people that I asked that had taken the exam. And then I followed pretty much their advice and I passed. So, but I would like to gather all the advice that I received plus a little bit of my opinion. So let's go through the agenda. First question, I'm gonna answer this. Should I bother taking the DA-100 if I already know the Power BI well? So, and also I'd like to talk how hard it is, the exam format, how I should prepare, when I know I'm ready, and on the exam day, some tips, and then just the last one, what if I fail, what I do. So a little bit about myself. I'm an experienced data professional. I do lots of business intelligence, data analysis, business analysis. I'm a part of Python programmer. I worked a little bit of as a data scientist as well. I'm a DA-100 certified, Azure fundamentals as well. I like the Microsoft stack. So here are my contacts. You can get see my GitHub with some projects that I've worked on, my Twitter accounts, and also my LinkedIn. So that maybe that's the best way to contact me. If you want to link with me and then ask questions or send me messages, no problem. So first question is, should I bother taking this exam? So for example, you can be in this situation. So I'm already good at Power BI and I want to validate my skills, which was my case. Or you can be in the other spectrum, which is I have no experience and I want to learn Power BI. Or I'm not working as a data analyst, but I know a bit of Power BI and think this skill can help me find a job, or other reasons. So I'd like to discuss a little bit of the two ends of the spectrum. Probably I was in the category of, I already know how to use Power BI and I already have experience and I already working with Power BI. So why should bother validating my skills if I'm already doing it? So there are various reasons, and just sharing a little bit of my experience was, probably that's the case of everyone using Power BI. I believe that not everyone is using 100% of Power BI capability. I probably was using maybe 40%. Probably the way the company was set up, I was using a lot the modeling and the visualization, but all the ETL and other functionalities were not being used because we were doing ETL in data warehouse or using data factory to extract the data. So I didn't use Power Query at all. And then another reason was I was about 18 months not using much Power BI. I used a lot for about 2 years and then I stopped. And boy, in these 18 months, so many features has came up and I say, wow, that's a good opportunity to learn to from a breadth perspective across all the functionality, and also learn everything new that it wasn't there. So every month Power BI are releasing new features. So then I made the decision. So I should go for the exam to recycle my skills of Power BI, and why not validate it? If you have no experience, the exam, just the advice that I give is this exam is more focused if you already have hands-on use with Power BI, and also know how to solve problems with Power BI and know the tool across the board. It's very extensive content. Probably if you have no experience, I would try to get some experience. So learn Power BI first, trial, put hands on. And once you build that, the exam is going to be easy. Should I have the certification? Is that going to help you to find a job? Maybe if you don't have a Power BI job, it's a way to demonstrate. So I not only know Power BI, here I passed the exam. So that can be like that can be a way where a recruiter for an entry-level position say, oh, this person has gone the extra mile to pass the exam, or it can be other reasons. But I would say there are two spectrum. I've already know should I take it. In my case, it was valid because I wanted to recycle and learn across the board. Yeah, all in all, I think it's worth it. If you don't bother, if you're already good, probably you should not take. So how hard the exam is? I would say that if you think about a T knowledge, so the breadth, you see the top of the T, and the depth, I would say that DA-100 is on the top of the T. It doesn't go too deep into any subject. So for example, DAX, they ask basic questions, not too basic, but they don't go too complicated queries. Or even M language, they don't go deep in the language. That can become very complicated. So, but the exam does cover everything. So pretty much it's more content heavy. The exam format. It's about 54 questions. In terms of timing, it used to be a little bit longer, but I think they shorten now. I think I was given 1 hour and 130 minutes, which is a little bit over 2 hours. And on this time includes preparation and just giving feedback about the questions and reviewing the questions. So within this 130 minutes, you would have like usually 2 study cases, which is the beginning, about 8 to 10 questions, maybe 4 to 5 questions each case study, where they would present you a lot of information about a case. Maybe here's the data model, here's the requirements to build a report, and they would like throw you like a lot of information. Maybe would take you maybe 5 to 10 minutes to read the whole case. But I think on purpose, they would overload you with information. And then they would ask like 4 questions. And the questions may be like specific to one point. I think you have to sift through all the noise, find where the information is, gather the requirements, do a little bit of analysis, and answer the questions. Maybe the 4 questions were about 40% of the content. Maybe a suggestion sometimes is really quickly the requirements and go straight to the question. Don't spend too much time to understand all the requirements. Or even go straight to the question and go back to the case and just find what it is and then answer the question, just to not lose so much time there. After that, you would have 46 to 48 questions, whatever is the balance to the questions, which is going to be a lot of isolated questions, not in a context of a case, but more asking about functionality and how does it work and scenarios. And there are various types of questions. Like there is the classic multiple choice, which is there's like 4 options, only one is correct. There are types of, you can pick multiple, so can be more than one true or false. You have to pay attention when they say false and true. there are some drag and drop questions where it's kind of like within these options, and you go and drag and fill in the blanks type of thing. There is another type of question that's called step in order. I think these were the hardest ones for me. It's like you have a scenario, you need to set up an alert, and then they would have like 8 options. Give me the 4 steps in order to get this done. And then it was pretty much like click this button and then click this and press save. And sometimes you got the steps right, but you swapped one in the order. So this probably, I would say, is the type of question that you would panic. But what I did usually, I would skip those questions and leave it at the end. So don't spend too much time there, because it's required lots of memorization. So on how to do it. There are questions like multiple, they would like give you a statement and then ask like if it's true or false. And the last one, which is pretty similar to the drag and drop, but instead of a drag drop is like a drop down box. For example, they may have a DAX formula and then fill in the blanks in this DAX format to achieve something. Before I continue, I'm just gonna quickly check the, where do I get to the, anyway, I was going to think about the questions, but I cannot find here if there's any questions. Anyway, I'll do that at the end. So how should I prepare? What I would do is download the content, which is here. Where is it? Yeah. So it's a PDF with all the bullet points. So make sure that you cover every single bullet point. And this can be, most of this is covered on the, if you go on the Microsoft DA-100 page. Microsoft Learning has got a good content that you can go through. It's very comprehensive, but it doesn't cover 100%. Just make sure that you complement that with the documentation of Power BI. So download the PDF, go through it, do a checklist if you cover everything. Do the learning path, and everything that's not covered there, you can complement with Power BI documentation, which goes a little bit deeper. If you want, I did a DA-100 notes, if you see on my GitHub. And then as I was studying, I did this bullet point kind of study notes where I use to review whenever I had some question or doubts while I was doing some practice tests. So that's another resource that I put available. In terms of preparation courses, there are not many around, but I did find one which I do recommend. It's the Philip Burton course in Udemy. So I think I can put a link later, but is this, where is it? Where's my Udemy? I think I don't have it. This one. So this guy is amazing. He's a very good teacher, and he's very thorough. He pretty much goes through every single button in Power BI and give examples on how to use it. The course is very extensive, maybe about 12, 13 hours. He's got exercises. It's pretty comprehensive if you want to know the tool end to end. There's another course that I recommend, but I think it's good, but it doesn't go as deep as Philip Burton, which is Park Stevens. He's very well known in the Power BI community. His company is called BI Elite, and that's a good course, but he does cover the content, but he doesn't go as deep as Philip Burton. In terms of practice tests, there are some Udemy practice tests there, but be careful with copyrights. I found out that there were some people using non-allowed content on Udemy, so I even reported a guy. And there's another one that's the official provider for Microsoft, which is Pearson's. Their site's called Measure Up, where you can buy very, very, very similar questions. It's not questions from the test, but they're very similar. So this is good for you to get familiarized with the test and get that stamina, endurance preparation. And lastly, I've already mentioned my GitHub notes. So when you know that you're ready, what I would do is, if you already have good experience with Power BI, probably you're ready to take the test. If you have a very broad, with lots of breadth, if you maybe study a couple of weeks or even less, just go to the PDF. Yeah, I know that. Pretty much, if you see the test, you think you're gonna pass first time. But be careful. If you don't know Power BI across the board, you may fail. Even though if you're a DAX, let's say if you're a DAX wizard, but you don't know anything about Power Query, probably you'll fail. Practice test, I would say if you are about 90% clearing all the tests, you're ready to go. I think on the day you have to get 70% cleared. It's not a number of questions right. I think Microsoft has got a point system from 0 to 1,000. And even if you ask a question partially, I think you got points towards the total. I got for this test 850 something out of 1,000, which gave me a margin to pass. So even though at the end I got lots of questions wrong, I got some partial. All in all, I had some margin and passed the test fine. There is a guy that I met through LinkedIn, a Portuguese guy that lives in London. He's got a blog post, sorry. Here's his blog post. He's go very comprehensively. It's pretty much my slides, but he goes in a blog post and give lots of tips about how the exam works and etc. Let's go back. And if you think you're ready, just book the exam. The worst that happens, you can fail. You do it again. So you learn something from your failing. On the exam day, what I would recommend is I would book the exam on a weekend in the morning, because you are rested. There's no pressure to go to work, or you may book like during the week at night. You may be tired, and that can be detrimental for your performance. Be familiarized with the UI. I kind of got stuck because the UI of the exam and the measure up was a little bit different, and I struggled to navigate to go back to the question that I marked to review later. And I found out that at the top left, there is an arrow up that sort of goes you to the main menu where you can browse the questions. So if you know that in advance, it's better. There is a video on the blog post from Microsoft, which is this video here, that tells you about the UI and how it works. That can be very handy. Skip the hard questions. As I said, don't spend too much time. There will be questions that you will not know the answer, so don't get stressed. Focus on the ones that are easy. I've already said about this. What if I fail? I kind of like, I hate tests, and I hate failing tests, but sometimes you just need to bite the bullet and go for it. So, and then try to find out what went wrong. So if you fail, was it because you were nervous? Why you were nervous? Did you took it too quickly? Were you weak in a certain area that you need to study a little bit more? Usually not usually, after you finish the exam, there is a report that kind of show each area you did well and each area you did poorly, so that you can concentrate on what you need to improve. And then just regroup and rebook the exam. So I think it's All in all, the exam is not hard, it's easy, but it does cover a lot of content. So anyone can pass if you dedicate. I probably studied about on my free time for about 2 months because I really wanted to go through, understand the Power BI. I went to the courses, did a lot of practice. Well, 8 weeks, just chipping away a little bit every day, 1 hour, 2 hours. So maybe dedicated maybe 20 hours of study and practicing. Probably if you already have experience, you don't need that much, maybe 5 to 10 hours if you are already a pro. So I think that's it. If you have any questions, I think I have 14 chats here. I don't know if I can have time to go through all of them, but where was when does it stopped? Yeah, there's a new book released from Daniel Masuik. That's correct. I had his book from the old exam. I pretty much didn't use the book I have here on my shelf because there was a little bit outdated. And I had other resources online, as I mentioned. Yeah, Heidi said here the exams can be done at home. If you are new to Power BI, any recommendations for a practice case study? I probably would recommend the try to browse on the internet, but Udemy has got some practice tests. There's another website that I don't know if I'm gonna find it, but it's somewhere here. But I can just give like a link and resources later. I think that's it. Any other questions? I think it's already almost 1:30.
It was a great session. I think you covered most of the questions. One thing I'll point out, I recently took the exam from home.
Yeah.
So if anyone doesn't know, check out the Microsoft events that come up in your region or virtually, because often they will offer discount to exams or exam vouchers as part of those. So whether it be a data training day, like an Azure data training day, or the Cloud Skills Bootcamp from Build that was on last week, or the Microsoft Business Application Summit that we had 2 months back, all those events often include things like exam vouchers or discounts. So watch out for those. And there are also retry passes. So you can take the exam. If you fail, you can retry without having to pay again.
Yeah.
Within a 24-hour period. And then there's, I think, a 2-week exclusion, and then you can try again. So don't be disheartened. Failing is just another way of learning. So give it a go. I was freaked out, and I play with Power BI reasonably often. And I'm like, oh, this exam, this is crazy. And like Pedro said, do it on a weekend. If your weekends are free like mine, I do it on the weekend. I just booked it one day for a Saturday night, sat there, did the exam. Don't have to do it again, thank goodness. But
yeah, and check with your employer, because some employers will pay for the exam. So, I know that some are partners, and partners need to have a various number of people certified. So, just check with your employer, because you may not think they'll pay for it, but they may.
Yeah, I got a voucher from Microsoft when they have the Ignite conference, which was good. It saved me $165 US dollars. Will be over 200 in Australia.
And the other ones, look out for education or non-for-profit pricing for anyone working in those industries.
And also,
they have a different pricing.
If you are not working, if you're unemployed to COVID, Microsoft offer like maybe $15 cost, which is very, very affordable.
Cool. Does anyone have more questions? Rajiv, you had a question about the connecting on LinkedIn. Yep, we'll make sure the details get reshared out for Stuart and Pedro so you can get in touch with them further. Eric, what's the next step in the Power BI journey? Oh, everywhere. No steps, the wrong step.
Yeah, no, sorry. The question was probably for Pedro, like in terms of like certification. So obviously that DA-100, that's probably a good one, but you know, it's like as you would maybe like just focus on that type of technology, you know, where would that lead you? Is that the endpoint, or it's part of a bigger type of certification?
Yeah. I think as far as Power BI is concerned, that's the certification. But there is another one that I'm going to go through on the second half, which is a bit harder, which is the data engineer one, which covers Microsoft Azure, and then the new one, which is the 203, is a bit harder. You have to know Python. You have to know how to solve problems, more complex problems with Synapse Analytics. I hope that's the next step. And another thing is Microsoft can make these Power BI DA-100 a triple star. At the moment, it's double star, which is associate. There are some exams that are triple star, which are called experts. And then let's say they do a Power BI expert, and then they would do a more difficult exam. Let's go really deep on the DAX and see who is good at DAX or who's maybe, and then that would require more knowledge. If this one is easy for people that already has got the basic, but there's not an announcement yet. But there are some areas where they have the expert badge, which are the harder exams.
I think to add to what Pedro said, he's right. There isn't a further journey specific to Power BI. It's either you switch into data science or data engineer or Azure or Power Platform or DevOps, but there isn't one that goes more deeper into DAX or visualizations or Power Query or M at the moment. So you kind of have to pick, are you switching roles or dual roles at that point?